Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Silence is Coleman, a podcast where we talk about all things Sunderland Football Club. I'm this week's host, Rory Drake, and with me today are
Alex Miller
and Jason Button.
So, first things first, Sunderland this weekend played Reading at home and, they did for 45 minutes at least. After that it was just Reading themselves really. Any of you two got any thoughts on the game?
Well, the optimism from last week has now completely disappeared.
Makes it seem a bit stupid, that, doesn't it?
Yeah, but the thing is though, the only positive I can say is that I got the score prediction right from last week. It's 3-1.
Wrong way round.
Yeah, kind of, but I mean, there were so many things wrong. I think the first thing to start with is the turning point of the game, the sending off, and the disallowed goal to go with it as well, which is probably the most Sunderland thing I've ever heard in my life.
I think at the time, from my position, I couldn't tell what had happened. I guessed it was probably handball.
Yeah, I thought someone had fouled like Manone in the lead up to it, grabbing or something, maybe nudged him, but no.
When it went in, I was confused because I looked at the linesman, he was just standing still. I thought, what's happened here? I thought it looked a good goal, and then the referee starts walking over, talks to his linesman, comes over and sends off McManaman, and the game changed from there really.
But, I mean, admittedly it wasn't the game, but from the highlights that I've seen, you'd think that he could just easily bundle the ball in from there.
Yeah,
there's no need for that extra effort to put his hand out.
Any contact apart from his arms or his hand, and it would have been a goal. He could have even edited it. I just feel like he just, in the heat of the moment, he's just threw his arms up to try and get anything in. But I mean, and then to get sent off as well.
And I think it's a bit of a shame because I think he was actually playing quite well up till that moment where he just lost his head. And I don't think there were that many people who actually played quite well. So losing him when he had been one of the better players in the first half as well.
The thing is, I remember that his first yellow card actually was stupid as well. He got really hot-headed and he went in for a sliding challenge and won the ball, and then he went in again and just kicked one of the Reading defenders.
Yeah, I think a couple of minutes before that, I think one of the reasons why the Sunderland fans were so annoyed at that point is Sonny Aluko had gone down under a challenge from a Sunderland player, and he got up and raised his arms towards the Sunderland player. Do you think he should have been sent off there?
Well, I suppose if you've gone off the letter of the law, if you do raise your hands, you give the referee a decision to make regardless. So on another day, you never know, depending on what sort of referee you've got. But yeah, it could have been. That could have again been another game changer.
Because the game itself, you say the positivity has gone, but if you look back to the first 20 minutes, I don't think I've seen the atmosphere at the stadium like that good this season.
Yeah.
And the team were playing really well until that point as well. And then, the second half of the first half, Reading had started to dictate the play a bit more, but Sunderland was still going forwards at times, looking pretty good, and it looked like they were going to get something out of the game until McManaman's moment.
I think it's so easy saying it afterwards, but if there was no sending off, I feel like we would have at least drawn the game. But yeah, it's just as it went on in the first half, the crowd seemed to get a bit on the back of them a bit, especially compared to the start, because it just started to get worse and worse.
One moment, going back to the very start of the game, that I thought was quite nice to see was the reception that Vito Manone got.
Yeah.
Obviously he's going through a tough time at the moment, so it was nice to see him get such a warm reception from the Sunderland fans.
It does deserve it. From the time that he had up here, he was well received by fans. The work he's been Bradley Larry was fantastic, so he really deserved that, and it's good to see that he did get that sort of reception.
And that, obviously, the whole cup run to Wembley as well, he was a massive part of. And I feel like fans will remember the good things about Manone rather than some of the bad.
Now, one obvious turning point in the game was McManaman sending off. In the second half, I think there was another one. The substitution of Joel Asoro. On paper, if you look at what's actually happened in the game, you would say that it probably didn't look a great substitution, because 5 minutes later you're 3-0 down, having conceded 2 in the time he's on the pitch in the first 5 minutes. But subbing on Osoro changed the game, but I think positively. Reading were 3-0 up and they might not have been as interested at that point. But Joel Osoro, they were struggling to cope with him, I think. His pace was ridiculous. His long throw-ins were causing a lot of problems and I don't think anybody really expected them.
Well, that's one of the things you want from him. He gives you that energy, which a lot of the other players don't, because there's not a massive amount of pace on the Sunderland side. And that's why I feel like he'll start the next game, especially with McManaman obviously being suspended for Wolves. So yeah, I feel like he's got a real chance now in the first team to really kick on.
We were saying last week about youth prospects, and I think we didn't overshadow him, but there wasn't as much in there that was said that could have been, because he could genuinely be a top quality player for the club.
I think the reason last week that I didn't mention him was that he'd just come on at Burton and got the assist and played well at Burton, so I think we were thinking he's already in the first team picture.
Yeah, very young player, but he's got the technical ability to really go places.
I think his inexperience showed a little bit on Saturday because he looked knackered towards the end of the game and he only played about half an hour, and I think, can he keep it going for a full game and be that effective in a full game? I'm not really sure. And it is worth mentioning that I think every single one of his long throws was a foul throw where he'd actually ran onto the pitch before throwing it, but the officials at that point seemed a little bit more relaxed and weren't really giving anything apart from obviously the penalty.
Yeah. About his fitness, I reckon the difference between him playing if he started the game, when he comes on down to 10 men, he'll be trying to impress, he'll be trying to chase and harry down everything. So I feel like if we can actually start a game, if it's a lot more safe against Wolves where we're defending quite a lot, then I think if we just used in sort of bursts whenever we can try and get forward and knock the ball past him so he can try and run onto it. But yeah, he is a very promising player, and I feel like due to injuries and suspensions he could get a chance at the minute.
I think when he came on it was interesting because I think before that point Sunderland were going forwards quite well, and then final ball was never really there, or they'd overplay it a bit, and the opportunity for a shot or the opportunity for a good pass to play somebody else in, they just always seemed to overplay it and it wasn't there anymore. I remember in the first half Honeyman was on the edge of the box, he had a great run, he should have shot, but he didn't. He kept going and then shot and it just went wide, but from the time he shot it never looked like it was going to go in because he just ran it too far across. The same actually happened a couple of times with Aidan McGeady, which was really frustrating because he got into good areas a fair few times and then I don't know what happened, he just seemed to freeze and then the Reading players just took the ball off him every single time on the edge of the box.
Yeah, that's the thing about McGeady, the amount of times he seems to do go forward in an attacking sense and then slows it all down, stops and ends up losing the ball. He's a pretty dangerous player when he wants to be, and defences know that, so they'll double up on him sometimes.
Would you say though that there could be a lack of support around him?
Honeyman, who played okay, he tried. I don't think he was particularly good when it came to finishing chances off, but he's quite young, he's still learning the game. And then McManaman, who I think in the first half was actually one of the best players on the pitch, so I think McGeady was made to look worse by McManaman on the other side doing better than him, but also he just didn't look like he was as interested, he didn't look like he was at it.
He was so sloppy as well. I remember I think it was Reading's second goal, we actually looked pretty promising on the break, and I feel like he had Matthews in acres of space on the right, which was an easy through ball down the right hand side, and he lost the ball, and then they went up and scored at the other end, which summed it up really.
I've not seen any of them back because I didn't want to see that game back.
I think it's quite a few years from there.
From memory, I don't think any of the goals were particularly good really.
Yeah, the first one was he got deflected off Oviedo to Edwards, and then I think Reuter should have saved the second one as well. I
found it quite interesting after the game with Jaap Stam, and a lot of Reading journalists were paying Reading a lot of compliments about how they played and saying they played really well. But to be honest, I don't think that's what I saw. I don't think Reading did play that well. I think if Sunderland had stayed with 11 men, they'd probably go on to win that game. I thought Reading just didn't really turn up. Second half, with their possession brand of football, they found it easier to create gaps, but I still don't think they were particularly good. I would say Sunderland just collapsed more than anything else.
Yeah. Well, like you said, I think it's more because of that red card. If that hadn't happened, the game could have been so much different.
I think everybody expected in the second half that Sunderland would collapse, and I think they didn't play too bad in the first half. I was a little bit disappointed they went in 0-0 actually. I think they could have scored in the first half if they'd have been a bit better finishing wise.
It's another home game, or another game in that sense, that the other team weren't that good. Obviously the send off played a big part, but they've scored 3 and it's more drop points, which and it's not a great side either. We're not playing the teams in the top 6 at home in the past, like Bolton, Millwall, QPR and now Reading, and haven't won any of them, so there's definitely points dropped, like, which shouldn't have been. Going
into individual performances on Saturday, anybody who you think actually played quite well?
Played well.
I know that's strange to ask for a 3-1 defeat, but
I do think Honeyman was alright. I think because he was the only one on the pitch who constantly, he wanted the ball. I mean, he didn't do the amazing things when he got it, but he was trying to make runs, and he was trying to actually influence the game in an attacking sense. And I think probably our most underrated players of Yedo. I still don't think he gets the appreciation because he's better than this level. Well, obviously the bottom end of the championship, and I feel like I wouldn't be surprised at all if some teams were looking at him if they were short at left back.
I'll probably agree with most of that. I think one player who hasn't been mentioned yet, who I think played quite well, is Adam Matthews at right back. For me, I think he's the last few weeks when I've seen him has looked pretty solid constantly, and that's a bit strange for a Sunderland defender really. There was also a moment in the first half actually which I was quite impressed with. John O'Shea using skill to get away from a striker charging him.
It was the first time for everything.
Talking of defenders, there was a good, I was going to say a moment, but it was more like a few minutes in the second half. Reading just passing the ball between themselves, no pressure at all from any Sunderland player for quite a long time. And what do you say to that?
Well, it took until the crowd was so like getting on the backs and loud at that moment when they actually started moving and actually started pressing, but it just seemed like they could have done that for the whole game. It
was quite disappointing that they were scrabbling and seemed to give up the game.
He did that from minute 1.
Yeah, I've not seen Grabban play as bad and be as ineffective as he was on Saturday.
It's the fact that he didn't put any effort in from the very start. He never seemed interested. I mean, he got another goal, but I suppose he didn't deserve it. To be fair.
I'd probably have given Asoro the penalty.
Yeah,
to be honest.
I would have given someone else the penalty, but I feel like I've mentioned it every episode now. But Catamol is not good enough. Like, I think the only reason why he's playing is there's no other options, but especially when he's playing with Gibson as well, who I actually praised last week. But Gibson and Catamol together, it was like we had no midfield.
Out of the two, I would say Catamol was definitely the worst. I think Gibson, whilst he didn't play brilliantly, he did look to offer something and he did look to want it more. But Catamol, I agree. I don't think he's got the ability, or it might not be ability. I just don't think he fits the system very well.
No. He doesn't work anymore. It's not just sitting back and trying to defend the whole 90 minutes. But I feel like it's because of the injuries. We've got Williams and McNair, who was supposed to start, didn't play, and Dong as well. They're 3 midfielders who should be in front of him if we had a full squad fit.
That's another thing I was just about to mention there actually. Paddy McNair was named in the lineup and was meant to start, and so I think with that in mind, with him getting injured in the warm-up and being withdrawn, Darren Gibson won't have been doing a proper warm-up because he wouldn't have been expecting to play, and I think that might also have affected his performance on the day.
Yeah, but he's a big miss, Paddy McNair. It's a real shame that he seems so injury prone now, because potentially one of our best players.
I think I've been impressed by Paddy when I've seen him, so I was quite disappointed when I got to the ground and he wasn't on the pitch.
And especially at this level, when he's got that ability which in the Championship at the lower level you don't really tend to see.
Going back to something we've mentioned on the last couple of podcasts about youth players being given a chance, I think both weeks we've been quite positive about Lyndon Gooch. I think he came on at 3-1 or something like that. He came on, there wasn't too much time. I just felt like pointing out that I felt he actually struggled in that game. I think against Cardiff he seemed to play quite well, but he came on against Reading, and in the last 15-20 minutes Sunderland were actually playing quite well. Asoro was starting to dictate the game at that point, and I don't know, Gooch just looked to struggle a bit and looked like maybe he isn't ready, and maybe he could do with going out on loan in January if someone else can be brought in to cover the position.
I do think Lyndon Gooch is kind of on the cusp of getting into the first team, but he's going to have to, because what are the other options at attacking mids? There isn't really anything else. They've got Honeyman potentially, and otherwise there's nothing really to play beyond the striker.
It's because Williams is out long term. Unless we get someone in January, I feel like he'll still stay. I think he would benefit more from a loan move to like mid-table to high League One team. Obviously, if he's playing every week, and if he was playing a decent side as well, hopefully get used to winning games.
I'd be a thirst for a Sunderland player, I reckon. We've pretty much gone over most of what happened in the Reading game. I don't think there's any arguments that it was a penalty. Asoro was clipped, and you know that's not really much of a talking point. One thing I will go on to, mentioned it briefly earlier, the referee, when it got to 3-1, just seemed so lenient, not giving anything, and the consistency. I know you can't expect every referee to be the same every week because they're all different, they all do things differently, but during the same game, to go from being relatively strict at the start of the game to then just letting things go towards the end, that annoyed me a bit.
I feel like the refs was a bit too strict in the first half. I think it was I can't remember who it was now, but they had a little like argument at the very end of the pitch in the south stand when it was like, I think it was Oviedo and might have been Aluko down the right hand side, and he both yellow carded them. And I think a strong referee would just say, alright, calm down, let's get on with the game. But yeah, I feel like they were really inconsistent.
He's coming into this as a qualified referee. Much like players, it takes time for the referee to get a feel of the game.
Yeah.
You can't just go in and straight away, because it takes time to really realise what's going on between individual players or anything like that. So it does take a certain amount of time, maybe 15 minutes into maybe 20, 25, but it shouldn't take a full game to properly get hold of what's of like the context within a game that you're refereeing.
Mentioning that Oviedo moment has actually reminded me, Oviedo went off injured during the game.
Yeah, that was a big blow.
I don't think we yet know how long he's going to be out for.
He did actually, I saw he tweeted actually, because I think there was some rumours that he was out for a really long time, but he said he's done his hamstring but just like tweaked it a little, so I think he's just out of the Wolves game, and I think like he'll be back for Fulham. But
looking forward to seeing Galloway at left back against Wolves.
In a word, no. He can barely even make the squad at the minute, because he came on actually for Oviedo purely because of the McNair hole, because he had to drop out, so someone had come back in on the bench. But I'm trying to think, he might not even play.
I was going to say, I'm guessing another option would be, as tried in pre-season, Adam Matthews at left back, and then bringing in Donald Love maybe, or someone like that.
Because I think they were actually thinking about it in the game when Oviedo got injured, that Browning might actually go right back, and then Mark Wilson might come on. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Wilson and O'Shea play against Wolves, even though they are basically the same player. Leaving
the Wolves game for a minute, the FA Cup draw was on Monday. Probably not the draw Sunderland would have been hoping for, away against Middlesbrough.
I don't know what Joe hoped for though. Throughout the whole thing, I thought we were going to get Newcastle, but because I feel like if we got like a team in like League 2 or one of the National League teams, I feel like we'd just get embarrassed.
The thing is, I feel as though the FA Cup isn't something that Sunderland should really be thinking about as a club. The state the league table is at the moment shows that, and you need to make sure there's safety and stability there before you can even consider looking at other competitions.
Yeah, but like if it still stays the same when we do play Middlesbrough, you'll still play a relatively strong team, because we need that winning sort of feeling if it's not there. Because if we can, especially because I feel like Coleman will think it's a really big game against a local team as well. So yeah, I still feel like we'll have a relatively strong side going into it, but I feel like there will be quite a lot of youngsters, especially on the bench.
Well, I think one perspective where the game would be quite good is that say you'd got a League 2 side at home, the attendance probably wouldn't have been particularly good, and with the with the money that's raised being split 45% and 10% to the FA, there'd been almost minimal amount of money going through, whereas away at Middlesbrough you'd expect pretty much a full stadium at Middlesbrough, I'd imagine, for that game.
Yeah, I reckon there'll be a decent away following going, because obviously it's not very far away as well, which helps. But wouldn't have minded a trip to Man U. I feel like it'll be a long time since we'll play them again. So
as you say, you avoided Newcastle, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah, I reckon it probably is.
I mean, the record against Newcastle speaks for itself.
Well, it's been good recently.
Well, exactly. It's a very good record, but you want to keep that going, and so you don't really think this is the best time to be playing against them again. I just feel a bit sorry for Gateshead, to be honest, after I went there on Sunday and watched them lose to Luton.
They were so close to getting to St James's, weren't they?
Newcastle versus Gateshead would have been a nice game. Although, to be honest, if they're losing 5-0, then they probably weren't that close at the end of the day. But yeah, the FA Cup draw, my personal opinion is, I think if Coleman could get in the FA Cup, start winning a few games, that could do more to get people on side than winning a couple of league games is all well and good, and they do need to win a couple of league games. You're going to be in League One otherwise, but if you can get some cup wins in there as well, it would probably lift the crowd a bit more, and I think that would be, I think that's needed really. But obviously, I don't think Middlesbrough's a great draw to have got from that perspective.
I feel like Middlesbrough will probably take it relatively serious as well, so that'll go against us.
With this sort of fixture, Middlesbrough are going to take it very seriously.
Yeah,
so it's going to be a tough game.
It's their big game of the season as well. So yeah, I can't imagine them playing a Wigan side, but I can't see it being a win for us.
I could see it go to a replay. I reckon.
I was just thinking, I can see Coleman taking it quite seriously as well, and I could see. I keep saying really positive things looking ahead to Sunderland games, but I could see it going to a replay.
You need to stop doing that at this rate.
I don't think that's going to last long if we keep getting games like the Reading game. Although, to be fair, the first half there were promising signs. It's just in the second half they just didn't come out.
Yeah. Speaking of positive signs, do you see any positives at Wolves?
Well, last week I said yes.
This week
I would say they'd be better just forfeiting the game and taking a 3-0 defeat. Just turn up, get 5 men sent off. I don't know what to say really about the Wolves game.
Because you were very positive about it last week, weren't you?
Last week,
now this is just turned right on its head.
Yeah, last week I was very positive, and this week, having looked into it a bit more and having seen that performance on Saturday, I really just do not see anything other than a heavy defeat.
Because I mean, they've got some Premier League players in the Championship. I mean, Bonatini he's got 12 goals. I was reading, and 5 assists as well. That's an incredible record.
Yeah, I think Wolves showed in the Carabao Cup just how strong their squad is, because in the Carabao Cup this season they've been using their second string side, and they took a reasonably strong Man City side to, was it penalties I think?
Yeah. There were some good players in that team, Man City team.
And I think with that being Wolves' reserve side that did that, and the players they've got in that team are so good, and then they're not even the starting players they play in the Championship. I don't think it's any surprise that they're on 47 points already.
This weekend, I'd say it's more a case of Wolves being too good than Sunderland not being good enough. Because it's kind of inevitable that they're going to come back up to beer time with no points. But I would say it's not to do with the squad that Chris Coleman has. It's just that Wolves are going to be too good.
Yeah,
and they've shown that all through this year.
I think that they've never shown that more than a couple of weeks ago when Bolton travelled down to the Molineux, because Bolton had been in reasonably good form in the weeks running up to that game, and their fans were reasonably optimistic they might actually get a draw from it. Maybe not win it, but get something from the game, and a positive performance. Obviously, that didn't happen. They lost 5-1, and I think that just shows how good Wolves are this season.
Well, I mean, it's not just like in an attacking sense, they've been great as well, like the defence as well. I mean, they've kept 10 clean sheets this season.
They've only conceded 17 goals in 20 games.
I think it's the worst defence against the best attack as well. So
it is, which will be interesting. I think Nuno Espirito Santo, he's had a reasonable amount of help in assembling his squad, but I think he's put together a squad that is destined for the Premier League, and I was going to say destined to do quite well next season, but then Newcastle haven't exactly set the Premier League alight this season, and they were destroying the Championship last season. So
I'd say that Newcastle didn't really do a huge amount over the summer.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
If Wolves have the summer that they could do, they could easily be Premier League mid-table and potentially push on even further next year.
Yeah, it's all about. I feel like you make a proper judgment of them when it comes up to March, April time. Because if they're still looking how they are now, then I feel like they'll easily probably win the league.
Well, that's the thing. I think with a lot of teams who are top by this sort of point in the season, they don't normally have that good squad depth, and it's after January where it starts to fall away a bit. But as we said, Wolves, with their reserve side looking that good, I think they should be able to see the season out, and they should be up there winning games every week pretty much if they keep going like that.
I mean, it's ridiculous that it's still the first week of December and they're getting 50 points this weekend potentially anyway. It's just...
I don't think there's a great deal of potential about it really.
It's more inevitable at this rate, isn't it?
It's an interesting team really, because they've been struggling for the last few seasons to get back to the Premier League, but they have so much potential now, especially with the money that's available to them. They've built a new stand recently. They actually had planning permission to do that the entire way round, and I think if they do go back up, they're probably going to look at doing the next stage of that, and they've got serious potential if they can.
Because it's only when they deemed themselves to be an established Premier League team that they started to build that new stand. Then when it was finished, ironically, they were in League One. Yeah,
League One only a couple of seasons ago. It's quite weird to think that, given how good they are now.
I suppose that's a positive. Potentially, what could happen for Sunderland, but I suppose they've now got the backing though as a difference. They've now got like the owners behind them, which could push them, which is different, obviously a bit different.
That's the thing. Over the last decade, Wolves were never short for cash. They just never seemed to be able to sign the right players. So I'd say it's a very different situation, to be honest.
Well, trying to go into something positive about Sunderland is that I'm trying to find somewhere that we could get a draw or anything.
0-0.
I'd snap you enough of 0-0.
No, I meant formation wise. 10-0. Put everyone behind the ball.
Yeah, to put everyone on the goal line, that might work.
Everyone apart from Roy.
Yeah, stick him up front. But there will be changes from the lineup, I imagine. And I'm praying Ndong's back, because there needs to be a change in centre midfield.
I think when Ndong comes back, there's going to be a significant difference. Yeah. I really do. Because last season he was arguably one of the best players going in the squad. Yeah. He's been out recently, and it's going to be so good to see him back in those red and white stripes.
And I don't even think I'd say, but I feel like we need Cornet back, even if he is going to leave in January.
That's a big shout, that.
I know, but
I didn't think I'd be hearing that anybody would want Cornet back in that team. I can understand why.
If he can just put a couple of good performances,
just act as though he actually cares.
Yeah, if he wants to try and get a move now, I wouldn't be that bothered.
Do you think he might finally get his move to Everton now Sam Allardyce is there?
I think Cadbury might as well. Just try and get the gang back together again, but.
Do you reckon John O'Shea could be off?
It's all going to happen, isn't
it? We do need some players back in the team, and it's a shame that we've got so many injuries, especially with Watmore as well. I think he'll turn out to be probably the biggest miss of the season.
Well, I think Watmore was due to leave in January anyway. Obviously, we've seen that he's received a letter from Real Madrid, so
that's one of the most surreal things I've seen in the last 2-3 months.
Yeah,
I don't think it is surreal. I think Chris Coleman was using his contacts. He was going to bring in Gareth Bale and send Watmore off to Real Madrid.
Just straight swap.
Straight swap, and then maybe Real Madrid pay about 10 million as well. I think that would have been a good deal for Real Madrid. Watmore's been quite good when he's played this season.
Because Doug Watmore. The Arsenal game last year is the one standout game I think we had from him, when he won that penalty to bring it back to 1-1. But other than that, I can't remember him doing a huge amount. I know he's liked, but I haven't seen that quality that you'd hope to see from him.
Thing is, I do actually, a couple of games before he got injured, I remember especially one at Hull, in Sunderland at Hull, against Hull, he played really well, and that was, I remember when we had Defoe and Ichibi and Watmore was three up front, and that was I think Anichebe and Watmore got injured for the season the week after.
I think from what I've seen of Watmore this season, thinking especially here at the Bolton and I think Bristol City games at home, I think he has looked quite promising, and he has gone forwards and looked a dangerous player, and as if he was going to cause a lot of problems. And so he just looked like he was getting back into it when he picked up his injury. which was a real shame. And I think McManaman came in and played well, but now who's going to come in for the Wolves game with McManaman not available and Watmore not available?
It is. We do have a bit of a selection issue on the wings as well, because McGeady, if we had loads of other options, I'd say McGeady has to be dropped. I mean, he should be probably anyway, but unless they're going to play like Gooch on the left hand side, or
put Gooch in the middle, Honeyman out wide, and then you're still missing a winger.
Sorrel.
Play the under 23.
Yeah, effectively is.
Not with John O'Shea in the team. Yeah, so going back to this Wolves game in particular, because I know we got a little bit sidetracked there with Wolves in general. Ruben Neves is back from suspension. That's huge for Wolves because he is a fantastic midfielder, and Sunderland would probably have wished he was still unavailable. Leo Bonatini, Helder Costa, Ivan Cavallero. There's so many talented players in that Wolves side that would walk into the Sunderland team.
I think they'll walk into Premiership sides as well, to be honest.
I think they would get into a fair few of them. Alex, you said you're hopeful of a draw, was that?
I wouldn't say hopeful, but I'm hoping that's the best we could get. But I feel like if that was to happen, we'd have to score at least 2, and that means that Graben has to put in a better performance than he did. He has to want it more, because I suppose it might be a little scouting for Wolves as well, as we talked about last week, that he's been linked with them, so you might even want to try.
I can see Sunderland scoring, but I just can't see them outscoring Wolves by any means.
Wolves' home record this season, they've played 10, they've won 8, they've drawn 1, which was back in September against Bristol City, who were, I think, top of the league at the time, and they've lost 1 back in August against Cardiff. They've won 6 home games in a row in the league, and I can't see where a point's going to come from for Sunderland this weekend.
Got the best goal difference as well in the league by a long way, plus 24, and like you said, I can't see a way in which Sunderland's going to get anything from this. Team
selection, obviously you can't name an unchanged lineup, but I don't think anybody probably would anyway.
Yeah.
What would you go for?
I feel like, as we spoke about earlier on, that I feel like Matthews will be switched to left back, and then I feel like Browning will move to right back, so I feel like that won't help either, though, because it was a pretty settled defence over the past couple of weeks. Coleman had found the defence he wanted, and obviously due to injuries, like more injuries, it's backfired a little now. But yeah, and then throughout the midfield there's got to be changes. There's got to be at least a couple, and hopefully McNair and Ndong can play together, which we haven't seen this season.
But would you go with the same system as Reading, do you think?
I feel like he'd also be tempted to go 3 at the back, to change it, because if you've got Brown and Wilson and O'Shea, he could change it there, because I know Wolves play 3 at the back as well.
Wilson and O'Shea I'd be quite worried about there, though, because Wolves have got a lot of pace up front, and I'm not sure that they would be able to cope with it, especially when Wolves play with 3 attacking players, or maybe a 4th sometimes.
I think they normally play 3-4-3.
Yeah.
Well, with the wing backs as well, they've probably got about 6 attacking players. Most of them are pretty quick, and I think all of them would cause Sunderland problems no matter what system they use.
I wouldn't be surprised though if he did go with like sort of a 3 or 5 with. Then you could put Galloway. He does.
It's a system he knows well from Wales as well, so I think that's a good shout.
Who would you put as wing backs, do you think?
Matthews and Galloway probably would. There's not too many options really.
I mean, Galloway does have his faults, but he's not slow, which could be favourable to him playing in the.
That would
in
also
the
give an opportunity for McGeady to have a bit of a break, which I think is desperately needed.
I would not play McGeady. I know that might not be a popular shout, but his form recently.
I think it would be.
I think it's a popular shout.
I think it would be.
I don't think you can have many passengers in this game if you are seriously looking at getting anything. McGeady against Reading, and in some games previous apparently, but I've not been at those ones.
Yeah.
McGeady has been a passenger, and you can't afford to carry him through this game as well.
I mean, I've not seen him do anything good since his goal against QPR.
Well, he's a bit of a sort of like luxury player for the squad at the minute, and the fact that he can't play against when we're going to be doing so much defending, because he's not going to do it. And I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if he did actually put a Soro and Graben up front, and Or I suppose he could go for James Vaughan now, being back from suspension. I feel like Catmull will play because we've got no other options, but I'm hoping that it'll be McNair and Dong, and probably say Gibson due to no one else. Honeyman actually, saying that.
Where do you want to go with your predictions for this week? Obviously last week we all made a prediction. If we were to say, if we get the right outcome, we get 1 point. If we get the right score, we get 3 points. We're all on 0 points from Saturday.
I've got the right score.
You got the right score, but for the wrong team.
Yeah.
So that's still 0 points. I'll give mine last, so I'll ask Jason first for his.
Like I said earlier on, I can see Sunderland scoring, but I really can't see them offering much in the game. Wolves, as we've said, are easily the best team in the league, and I can't see it being anything more than potentially 4-1. I'm going.
Alex?
I want to say a positive for Sunderland, I really do, but I feel like I might stick with 3-1 and go, but obviously, Wolves this time, getting the 3 goals.
So that's Jason 4-1, Alex 3-1.
It pains me to say this for them to lose, but
I'm going to be even more pessimistic than both of you, and I'm actually going to go 6-1.
Ooh, ouch.
I agree. I think I can see Sunderland getting a goal, but I just cannot see how Sunderland can get anything against when Wolves have got that many good players, especially going forwards. I just think it's going to be a bad one.
Going forward as well, and Sky Sports, their Championship Best 11 from November, has 6 Wolves players in it. It's ridiculous. There's not only the quality there, but like you said, everyone, the depth. Any injury is just sorted out straight away.
No, they only won 1-0 against Birmingham on Monday, but that was away from home, and Steve Cottrell has made Birmingham reasonably good defensively.
That's a tough fixture to play as well. You've got Wolves Birmingham, huge derby, and any win in that is very, very well received by the fans.
And I don't want to end this podcast on a negative note, so
I think he did with 6-1.
Well, yeah. I think if we just go away from Sunderland for a minute, going to the World Cup draw, let's start with Brian Oviedo and Costa Rica. What do we think of their chances? They've been drawn out with Brazil, Switzerland and Serbia. It's not the easiest of draws.
But Costa Rica have shown that they can surprise. I mean, they did so well in the last World Cup, playing against Brazil. I feel like there is a chance for them to qualify there, but I mean, I think Serbia might be the dark horses of this one. I think they could actually do quite well, because I feel like they'll give Brazil a decent match.
I do feel as though Switzerland in that group as well. They're never that team that have like standout players, but as a group they always do well. I remember them doing well against France in 2010, 2008 in the Euros. So they've definitely got the ability to do something there. Costa Rica could potentially get, if we're being positive, a win against Serbia, but I can't see them getting through to the knockout rounds.
But they said that last time though. You just never know in sort of like these potentially knockout games.
I would say against Switzerland there's always a chance, because the Swiss are very good defensively normally, but up front
they do struggle going forward. I will admit.
I think their main striker is Haris Seferovic, who's never been a particularly good goal scorer.
They've got that Embolo. I feel like his career's stagnated a bit.
He went to Schalke and he's not really kicked on yet.
And Shaqiri's hit and miss as well.
So I think if they can get something against Serbia and get something against Switzerland, which I think they could.
There's no way they're going to finish top of the group with Brazil in there.
I wouldn't expect them to finish top of the group.
No, I do think there's a chance.
There is a good chance they could go through.
But there's a chance they could get that second spot.
And that was this week's episode of Silence's Coleman. If you've got any questions or talking points you want us to talk about next week, please reply on Twitter or YouTube. Thanks for listening.